Welcome into the roundtable. I am Brad Wakai. That is my co-host Tyson Gentry. We are breaking down the Final Four, Tyson. It's finally here. Saturday, national championship game on Monday. I can't believe it. It feels like it was a build-up for this whole thing, and then the first weekend was just crazy. And it's like, oh, what the hell happened? Then you like kind of have that little lull, when you're like, man, there's nothing to bet on, there's nothing to watch, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, here's the Final Four. You have 2 games left, and you're done.
Yep, and then it's Monday. We'll all talk about it all day, and then because we have a very distinct Final Four. Like if FAU, SDSU, or somebody else besides UConn basically wins the title, it's going to be a huge story. And then Monday, the top 25 for next year comes out, and we're not really going to give a shit about it's craziness, man. In this tournament, I kind of wanted to ask you this. We always say like upsets early, chalk late. It feels like this tournament was more like there were your big upsets. You had your FDUs and your Princetons, but it was like chalk early, and then the lower seeds just kept knocking people off as the tournament went. I've never seen anything like it.
No, it's been crazy, and this is the second highest number of seeds combined in the history of the tournament to make it to a Final Four. I believe again the UConn year. I think it was the Shabazz Napier
2014
year,
maybe.
2014. They actually had the highest. So this is definitely one of the anomalies, and it's it's interesting because you say that, right? Because besides like the Furman upset on like day one, it was kind of like, oh, this is pretty chalky. And then day two is really chalky until you got into the Purdue game. Then everything else, like you said, like Alabama going down, Houston going down the same day, no number ones. You're like, okay, this is actually like a wonky tournament that we expected.
It's been awesome. And again, man, Larinaga came out and said that they need to expand it to 96 teams. It's bonkers to me. Like this is perfect as it is right now. I mean, I know they want more money and all that, but like I don't need to watch Virginia lose to a 20 seed. I'm good.
Yeah, that's fine. And we don't need another Matt Painter. That's another
I
ridiculous
take one
loss.
of those a year. I mean, we
Yeah,
get one
that's
a
a good
year.
point. As long as Iowa loses early every year, like they always do, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, that's a Big Ten in you.
All right, let's get into the Elite Eight review because there was some interesting stuff to get in here, and I think the main one that people were talking about, and we'll just touch on this briefly. I think it's kind of necessary at this point, but I mean, it easily could have been Creighton here playing Florida Atlantic instead of San Diego State. Interesting call by the referees, and you have, of course, Tyson both sides like, well, it's a foul, you got to call it. And then there's the other side like, you can never call a foul in that situation. When I think really it's in the middle. Like, would you like the guy not to call a foul there? Yeah, of course. Like, do we really want it to be decided by a free throws? No. Like, we all wanted them to either make the shot or let's go to overtime and play 5 more minutes. Like, I think everybody on the planet, except for fans of those two teams, would have wanted that. It just so happened that that Nimhard had his hand on his back, was called for the foul, and then we got no drama down the stretch. It was a brutal ending to that game.
Well, it was. I mean, you see the Eagles jersey behind me. You see one behind you. Is pretty much the same thing that happened in the Super Bowl. It's like that's a penalty. That's a foul.
Yep.
You call it 59 minutes out of the game, and then the last one, like people all of a sudden, it's like you can't call it there. And I understand that because in the moment too. I mean, I might have had a little money on Creighton, but in the moment, I was like, "Come on, dude!" Especially in the NCAA, they never ever call that. You can do whatever you want in the last 10 seconds, but it was a foul. And he gave us a little drama missing the first free throw. Shout out to the courtside reporter who asked why he was so emotional after he hit the free throws to send his team to the Final Four. I was like, good God, man, you're making six bigs.
Yeah. Well, if it was a foul for sure, but it's like they hadn't been calling that type of stuff all game. And I think that's where it gets frustrating, right? Because like that was a physical game. Like people were
Yeah.
getting upended, dude. It looked like WWE at some points where like bodies are flying all over the court. And then now it's like, oh, you know what? We're gonna call a foul now with 0.1 or 1.1 second left. It's like, come on, ref. Really? Like you really needed to make your face all over TV at this point in time instead of letting these kids play basketball? Like that's what we're doing here.
Dude, if you don't like college basketball, or if you don't like ref ball, you don't like college basketball. Because that's kind of what it turns into. Like I want to steal the show and I want to go to the monitor and review shit for 10 minutes. It's like, bro, if we're checking the time, like it doesn't take you 6 minutes to get the time. Just when the
Yeah.
ball hits the ground or something, pause it. There's your time. You don't need to call anybody. We don't need Gene to come on and give his opinion, which he waits for the other refs to make the call. But other than that, I mean, SDSU's been getting a pretty favorable whistle all tournament, and that's fine with me. I'm not upset about that at all. The inconsistency's been pretty nuts, but the Elite Eight was they in the Sweet 16. It was just everything you could have asked for from this tournament. And I think, we're getting a little spoiled this year. I think people aren't really taking into account exactly what it is that we're seeing, because this is either a huge paradigm shift or a huge anomaly, and I'm here for both of them.
That's a good point. I mean, it's either going to be, hey, this is going to happen a lot more, or like you said, because we thought in 2014, we're like, this is the craziest thing ever. We'll never see it again. We really hadn't, because that was kind of at the time with conference realignment, different things like that. Do these schools who are older, people stay a little bit longer because we're getting in this era of one and done type of things. Well, now these mid majors, are they really going to climb up? And then it gets away from it a bit, right? It's an ebb and flow to multiple things. But I think now, Tyson, the question is going to be, and this is maybe a postseason conversation more than anything as we get into the Final Four, but, is it here to stay with NIL? Because Miami, they're a big proponent of the NIL. Like they are using that to get players to come transfers and their current players to stay. Like they are very, very progressive in that aspect. But I think when you look at it from the other spot too, like Florida Atlantic, they've been together for a while. Like Dusty May, their head coach, like he's been rumored to take other jobs, hasn't done it. San Diego State, same thing. Dutcher's been there forever. It's this same group of kids who kind of grow up and go through these growing pains. Or is it just, hey, this is just a crazy year. Next year, it's going to be Villanova, Kansas, Duke, and North Carolina like it was last year?
Well, part of it, and we will get into it postseason. Recruiting classes have kind of sucked compared to the last, like the decade before them. If you got what did Duke swing this year? 4 of the top 20 or something like that. And look at how
5 stars.
Yeah, and look at how that panned out. I mean, I just think that the quality of player has decreased a little bit as far as finding superstars at these top level programs. And, it's getting to the point now where it's like, you're going to see more Michael Porter Juniors and more kids who are just like, dude, I'm not playing. Like, I don't care. I'm already going in the lottery. And then you have, your 25-year-olds from San Diego State who have been in college for 6 years. This is their last opportunity before they go play hoops in Turkey or Iran or wherever. And it just, it's the SEC slogan, man. It just means more.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, good news for Duke. Tyrese Proctor coming back. That's a big one. Mark Mitchell coming back. I'm slowly converting Tyson to become a Duke fan, I think, here. So watch out for the Dukies, baby. They got a good class coming in. They got their good players staying. If Filipowski stays, oh, my God, they may not lose a game. I'm telling you.
I cannot wait for next year. You're going to rage opening night.
I will, because I didn't have high expectations coming this year. Next year I will. It's gonna be feel good to be back. All right, let's get into the Final Four preview. That was really the only game we truly needed to discuss, was kind of that ending of Creighton, because the other teams here. UConn smashed Gonzaga. They won 82-54 coming in. Florida Atlantic gets by Kansas State. That was an electric game. But Florida Atlanta, we said this on a preview. Also, we buried the lead. We had a huge weekend, Sweet 16 and Elite 8 gambling-wise. So if you're not following us at this point, I mean, what are you really doing? And Tyson will tell you how to follow our picks. And then the other team here, Miami. Now, this is your Miami team. It seems like they're a little Cinderella, or not a Cinderella, a team of destiny, I should say, because they were dead against Drake. They somehow won that game. Then they smashed Indiana, smashed Houston, and then came up from the dead again.
The Tyson Fury did.
Yeah, Tyson Fury did twice. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. And here they are in the Final Four.
Well, we talked about it last time, and this is a genuine shift in college basketball. But Miami has the best guards in the country, like 1, 2, and 3. Like, there's nothing you can really do with those guys. Their ceiling is so much higher than people kind of anticipated because of that. Like, if Wong has a bad game, one of the other two picks him up and drops 25. And if he's on, you can't beat Miami. And that's kind of been the story throughout the ACC too. They're holding water for the conference right now, but this is Jim Larrañaga's. He just solidified him. He's walking into not the College Basketball Hall of Fame, but he's walking into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame after taking 2 different teams to their first Final Fours. I mean, this team is electric, man. But they've had to be perfect a couple times. And they got to be perfect again, and that's what's scary. It's really hard to be perfect.
Absolutely, and they're taking on a UConn team who's been insane throughout this tournament. Like, they've just smashed teams. It has not been competitive for anybody they faced. And
what is it?
Late game.
They're UConn out of conference this year. They're undefeated, average winning margin by over 14 points, I think it is. So Creighton getting eliminated, like we talk about this year as an outlier and all that stuff. Brad, whenever there's an outlier tournament, whenever you put a tournament statistic in there and there's an outlier, it's always UConn. It always is.
When these weird tournaments, it's like, well, who won it in that weird year? It's like, oh, UConn. It's like, oh, well, here's UConn again. And I think that's why people are gravitating towards this UConn team right now, Tyson, which does make me a little nervous. I'm not going to lie to you, because now everybody's like, because everybody's hearing the same thing, right? Because we've had this week off, and everybody's like, interesting. What's the storyline? It's like, oh, it's weird. UConn, let's bet them. Or let's think we all think they're going to win now. They should win. And there's the expectation on this UConn team. Now they played up to that expectation, that standard that you expect from a championship team. Like we said, they've just smashed teams and smashed anybody who's in front of them. It didn't matter who it was. And we've been saying this, and maybe eventually after this tournament, I'll shut up about it. But Danny Hurley, man, it's the tournament type of stuff with them when it's all expected to go right. And maybe he, kind of overcame that against Gonzaga, because we all expected, UConn, or at least you and I did, that UConn is a better team than this Gonzaga team, and they should win. But I think there were a lot of people who were riding that hot Gonzaga hand. So maybe it wasn't the expectation that we thought on his shoulders. But now it's like, okay, you're expected to win this tournament. Like, UConn's the favorite. You have to do it. And maybe that does impact them a bit.
I sure hope not, because I'm having more fun watching this version of UConn than I have watching pretty much any college basketball team in my, like, these guys are killers, dude, and they win at every level on offense. And then you just come down the other way, and they're either stealing the ball from you. Don't out rebound UConn. You just don't do it. You get Sanogo in foul trouble, that's fine. There's another 7-footer coming off the bench that'll put 20 on your head. The guards are electric. Hawkins is a fucking microwave. I haven't seen a guy like this since Shabazz, pretty much, in the NCAA tournament. They have all the pieces. And I don't know if this is the year that all the pieces mean as much as they do other years. And that's kind of what's been pretty fun about trying to figure out angles and who I want to pick for this Final Four upcoming. But, I mean, you're kidding yourself. You don't think UConn's a favorite. They have to be.
Yeah, 100%. And then, so let's talk about the first game here. Florida Atlantic against San Diego State. Now, this is the 5-seed Aztecs out of the Mountain West against the 9-seeded Florida Atlantic Owls at a Conference USA. And let's pull it up here for our YouTube viewers. Here are the odds right now. San Diego State favored by 2.5. They opened as 1.5-point favorites. This over-under sitting at 135.5. Juice to the over here. Now, listen, Florida Atlantic, man, they metrically have overperformed by every single standard. Like, Ken Pom has them as the 17th rated team in the country. They're a really good team, an awesome team. They have old players. They have a great coach in Dusty May, and they know how to play together. And I don't think that playing a team like San Diego State, who's extremely physical, who knows how to use their bodies and can slide their feet and really make it difficult on the guards, I don't know if that's going to deter Florida Atlantic from getting into the lane as much as it has these other teams like in Alabama and like Creighton last round, because Florida Atlantic's had to overcome it against Memphis and Tennessee. So that's the matchup I'm interested to see, Tyson. Can San Diego State bother the elite guards of Florida Atlantic?
Oh, I think they can. I mean, what is it? 2 of the last 7 teams that San Diego State's played have scored over 60. 60. That's craziness. This defense is completely elite. They haven't played somebody that doesn't give a shit as much as Florida Atlantic doesn't give a shit. And what I mean by that is, like, they are so unintimidated by everybody that they've played all tournament long, all conference tournament, all season long when you checked in on them, because we had a little sidebar before the show, and we were both just like in January, we were like, man, I don't know if I should hold this FAU ticket, but they look nice. They don't care, dude. And San Diego State has kind of benefited. Like, they shocked Alabama. Alabama was just completely blown away by the physicality, could never really get over it. San Diego State's been living with letting teams take jump shots, and they've kind of feasted on the fact that the last couple guys they've played haven't been able to hit jumpers. And they played Alabama and Creighton, 2 great jump shooting teams. Florida Atlantic isn't taking threes like that, though. They want the midi. They want to be 18 feet away. They want to work it inside the Golden, see what they can do. I'm fascinated with this matchup because I think for the first time this tournament, San Diego State is playing against somebody that just doesn't really care what pace we play the game at. because the last couple San Diego State games are like, we want to slow this thing down. You're not comfortable with this. We're going to go half court. We're going to beat you. Florida Atlantic probably looking at that, like, that's kind of what we prefer. Like, we're really good in the half court. That's fine with us.
Yeah, and it was impressive how they handled like the Kansas State, trying to get up and down, and Florida Atlantic can run with them because they have elite guards. Now, San Diego State's defense, to your point, has been awesome. I mean, Alabama shot 17% against their defense from three, which is just insane. And then Creighton didn't shoot much better than that. And those are both really good shooting teams from deep. So, Tyson, I'll get into my best bet here. I'm just going to give it out. Over 131.5 is my play here. And it's just like, what? San Diego State's defense, awesome. The last 12 games that they've played have gone under. So what are you doing here? They're in NRG Stadium, a football stadium in Houston. You're crazy. Now, here's why I'm playing the over. That's already baked into the line, the fact that this is in a football stadium. Like, if you know something, the books know something. Like, you're not like, whoa, they don't know. It's in the football stadium under. No, they already know it. So that's baked into this thing. Now, I think there's value here because, one, Ken Palm has this landing on 133. So, about a point and a half here. So that's a little bit of value there. Now, Ken Palm has, gone a little bit more over during this tournament with his simulations than what the books have given out. And it's been a roller coaster up and down with overs and unders. But here's my handicap on this. San Diego State, like we said, has done a great job on the defensive end. Teams have not been able to shoot against them. I think that changes against Florida Atlantic. Like, there is some regression coming for the San Diego State defense who, like Tyson said, is giving up open jump shots. Teams just haven't been hitting them. Now, is it something special about Florida Atlantic? Maybe not. I don't know. But at some point, somebody's going to hit these open jumpers. So somebody has to. I think it'll be Florida Atlantic hitting their shots. And on the other end, FAU wants to run teams off the three-point line. That's what they do a great job at. That plays right into the strengths of San Diego State. They love the mid-range jumper. So if you're like closing out hard, and by instinct, you're just closing out hard on the three-point line, San Diego State gets right into that lane, shoots jumpers. They, I think, are going to have an easier time scoring in this game than they've had in the past couple games against Alabama, who has a great defense, and against a Creighton team who also has a great defense. So I think there are going to be points in this game. I'm going over 131.5 as my best bet of the Final Four.
I like it. That's bold, and that's what we all cheer for. If you bet unders, and you cheer for unders, you're a psycho. Let's just get that.
Unless they're first half unders.
Yeah, that's true. And we all play first half unders because that's the game. But in this game, Brad, feels wrong. It really does. But Florida Atlantic's going to win. I think Florida Atlantic's playing in the national championship game. I got them money line at plus 128. I think I actually placed it at plus 135. Earlier. It's slid a little bit. I think the spread was 3 as well earlier this week, but I'm infatuated with the way Florida Atlantic plays. I'm infatuated with Dusty May's just complete inability to be rattled. Like, at any moment in this tournament, you flash over and he's just drinking his Gatorade, drinking his water, hanging out, having a good time. This is a team that wins basketball games, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. They win in so many different ways. That it's just, to me, looking at this matchup, like, San Diego State has to be a better version of who they are to beat Florida Atlantic, and I think Florida Atlantic can just be themselves. And that's kind of what I look for in these big kind of high cooker or pressure cooker situations. I really, really like Florida Atlantic, man, and I think at plus 130, your implied value, like, you're implying they win 40+% of the time. And I think this is way closer to I think Florida Atlantic should be the favorite, in all honesty. I think they've been better in the tournament. Look, man, if you're telling me that I can get plus money on who I think is already the better team, you just have to jump it.
Yeah, and Ken Palm has them losing by 1 point too. So there's value. Like, it's even closer in the Ken Palm metrics than what this line on FanDuel is giving you as well. So Tyson taking Florida Atlantic money line on this game. I'm on the over. Miami and UConn. So let's get into this one a little bit before we start talking gambling. It's almost like you're just waiting for the luck to run out for Miami, because that's what it feels like. In all honesty, like, we look at it like, well, should have lost to Drake. Texas just like took their foot off the gas. And we forget about the sandwich games in between where they smashed Indiana and they smashed Houston. We're like, well, and it's like, they shouldn't even be here. It's like, sure, but that's the tournament. Like, you survive in advance. That's the game. So you're just almost waiting for it to be like, man, Miami's defense stinks. Like, when is that finally going to catch up with them? And so on the flip side, a UConn team who can score at multiple levels, like you said, like you'd imagine that they can take advantage of this soft Miami team. And still there's just something like, God, is Miami ever going to lose? Like, what is going on with these? Like, these guards can hit from anywhere. Like, Omier is like 6'4". He's like Charles Barkley. He's 6'4" and gets every single rebound. It's crazy. And they have something going on right now, Tyson. So I want you to talk about Miami a bit, and we'll get into the handicap.
Well, one thing I think that's important with this game, and Amir's been great, but like if you get Sonogo into foul trouble, you're not out of the woods. And that's kind of the rub with this UConn team, and it's been that way all year. UConn has been favored the last 3 rounds by 9.5, in the tournament, 9.5, 4, 3.5, 2.5. They won by 24, 15, 23, and 28 points. It's really hard to get a read on exactly how well they're playing because sometimes it's like, well, Arkansas didn't show up today. Gonzaga's riding the high of the UCLA game. They just got out physical. And again, man, it sounds so stupid, but I promise you it's true. When a team isn't intimidated, it goes a long ways in college hoops. It goes all the way. And that's kind of what we're seeing with 3 of these 4 teams. I think UConn being in the Final Four, if this was all ones at UConn, you wouldn't be super shocked. But them being the high seed here is a little bit, or the low seed's a little interesting. Miami has to score a lot. And I think this is a game that I'm looking – UConn's going to score 80 points. And I think Miami has to be really, really good to score 80 points because UConn's defense is good. Like, it's better than I think we thought it was coming into the tournament. And, again, it's been hard to tell because they're just – they're the Kansas City Chiefs. They put 30 on you in the first half, and then you play catch-up, and it's really hard for teams that can't shoot. Miami can shoot a little bit. Miami can run a little bit. UConn wants to run. Miami wants to run. We could do that. You want to play with your guards? We have microwaves too. We don't have Hawkins. We got microwaves. And I think this is the first time in the tournament that Jim Larrañaga is going to be able to exert a little bit of dominance over opposing head coaches. And I think Hurley's been skating by a little bit that way too. Like Mark Few's a good coach. That game was never close. Eric Musselman's a good coach. That game was never close. If UConn starts hot, this thing's wrapped. If they don't, Miami is going to find a way to be in this game. And I think Miami at plus 5.5 weirdly feels like a pretty safe play to me because they don't go away, man. They refuse to quit.
Yeah, and like Tyson said, UConn minus 5.5 point favorites here. The over under 149.5. It's juiced under. Oh man, I'm going back and forth. Like I'm scared of all the love on UConn. And I think if it was against any other team besides this Miami team where it feels team of destiny that people are like, man, I don't know if I want to get in front of that train. And I kind of feel the same way. But Tyson, I'm going to go UConn minus 5.5 here for my best bet in this game. And this is like, I'm much more confident in the FAU San Diego State over than I am in this play. But I'm just going to ride UConn minus 5.5. I think they have an advantage here on the offense versus defense side. I think they're going to score at will, like you said. And then if Miami in the new stadium, in the sightlines point of view of a football stadium where we know it's impacted some teams who are shooting type teams, if they can't keep up early against UConn and UConn's just able to establish their will on the inside and then get their shooters in rhythm and get comfortable, it's going to be a long day for Miami. And so I'm just gonna lay it here with UConn and kind of hold my nose a bit and hope that it's not close enough where it becomes down to Larrañaga versus Hurley.
I didn't think anybody in the field left was going to be able to beat Texas. And for 30 minutes of that Miami game, I felt pretty good about that take. And then Miami just decided, like, fuck this. We're better than you. You can't score for the last 3 minutes. We're putting it in every time down. I'm a little worried that UConn hasn't had to play a game like that in a minute. They haven't had to play one where, like, it's back and forth and back and forth. And most of the time when you get to the Final Four, these tournament teams, like, you've been in some fights. The last one that I can remember that blew everybody out on their way to the Final Four was that Kentucky team that lost to Frank Kaminsky. And, this kind of feels like that a little bit. Like, when you kill everybody, eventually somebody's waiting for you that's been in more fights. And they're just going to make it a fight. And UConn's pretty, man. Like, they're silky and they're smooth and they're They're smiling, they're posing, they're jumping out the gym. And Miami's just packing the lunch pail and going to work. And I'm a little nervous that UConn hasn't had to work for anything in 3 rounds. Like Iona was like the hardest they worked this tournament.
First half too.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. Is it's like maybe they don't have to work hard because they're way better than everybody. And if that's the case, then our theory of just betting whoever wins the Hawaii Invitational to win the tournament looks pretty good.
So who are you taking?
I think to win the game, probably UConn, but I'm going to take
Okay.
Miami plus 5.5. And I'm really intrigued at 149.5. That might have to be a live play. And if you're interested in following our live plays, we had a pretty good live weekend for the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight. That will be in the Chalkboard app. The group name is the Roundtable. You can find it on the App Store, on Google Play, wherever you download your apps. Just we're throwing picks at the wall and seeing what sticks. But as Brad mentioned, pretty massive Sweet 16 Elite Eight. We got some golf picks rolling. We got XFL picks in there. So we're paying attention to everything. NBA stuff, both positive yesterday. NHL picks. Baseball's back. Brad almost vacuumed the entire board today with his baseball picks. But yeah, whatever you can think of, we're betting on it. And it's just a little community. I mean, it's not just us posting picks in there. So there's other people. And you can hop in there and call us dumbass. Like when we're wrong, that doesn't bother me. Sometimes I am. Like I got smooth brain occasionally. I'm not afraid to admit it. But the Chalkboard app, the group name is the Roundtable.
And Tyson, you know what I just realized as you're going through that? Oh my God, the Blue Jays found a way to win. So I'm still perfect on the day, baby. Let's go. What a roller coaster. This is insane. I'm gonna have to go back and look at this. So great opening day. But Tyson, this is the first time we've gone mano-a-mano in this tournament.
Yeah, we've been pretty aligned. And honestly, you taking UConn with the points makes me want to take Miami money line just to really put my money where my mouth is, man.
Yeah, put a little.
What happens? Let's get in the weeds here for a sec before we get out of here. Dusty May and FAU win. Jim Larrañaga and Miami Hurricanes win. Jim Larrañaga and the Miami Hurricanes beat Dusty May and FAU in the national championship. Jim Larrañaga rides off in the sunset. Does Dusty May take the Miami job?
Oh, for sure.
Does he bring over half his team?
John L. Davis for sure.
I think that's a fascinating storyline to me if that happens, because Larrañaga shouldn't retire, and I don't want him to. But if he wins a national championship, dude, like go smell the roses. You just built this thing from the ground up when you walked in the door of Miami, get him to a title. And if I'm Dusty May, I'm like, damn, I moved like 12 miles up the road. I can bring all my guys. That's not so bad.
No, if Larrañaga, he's going to be the next head coach of Miami if Larrañaga's if he retires. Like that's from what I've been reading from our own Penn State coaching search, that Dusty May's like waiting for the Miami job, which is interesting. So we'll see.
So weird because that wasn't a job anybody wanted 10 years ago. I mean,
no, it's not. I mean, Larrañaga's done a great job, and again, they're super progressive on this NIL stuff. So you can basically get anybody. It's like come play basketball in Miami, and you get paid while doing it. Oh man, twist my arm.
Yeah, exactly. And you're on national TV, 3 times a week when they're good.
Right. Yeah. So it's not a bad gig, but we'll see. Mano Tyson and I in the Final Four. Man, it feels wrong, but it was bound to happen at some point.
I mean, it's amazing that we've gone through 68 of these or 34 of these things, and we haven't had one yet.
I know, it really is. Okay, like, subscribe, and share the show. We appreciate you guys holding out on us this week or waiting for us this week. We had a pretty packed week on our personal side of things. Draft dive. We're getting into a heavy next week after we break down the national championship game for y'all. We'll have picks for that game in the chalkboard if we don't do a show before. We probably won't. So I think picks will be in the chalkboard. We'll figure it out. So make sure you follow us on our social medias because that's where we can communicate. If you want to send us a tweet over at TRT_pod. Or just follow us on Instagram and TikTok. The handle is the same for both those social media pages at _the Roundtable Pod _. We appreciate you guys listening as always. We'll be back next week. So until then, guys, peace.